The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. I'm your host, Pastor Zack, and we hope you're having a great start to your week. If you're listening to this on release day, it's Monday, and so we want you to know that we are praying that you have an amazing rest of your week, and we hope that this episode is just an amazing way for you to start what we're praying is an awesome week. And we have a very special opportunity today. We got a different face on your Monday, Tuesday seat here, and we got my good friend Larry Rinehart here today. Man, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, glad to be here.
Yes, welcome in. And there's a very special reason you're sitting in this seat, because if people do know or don't know on the podcast, usually on Monday and Tuesday, we like to have a longer conversation and unpack what happened during our Sunday morning service. And this week was a very special week for Biker Sunday, and we got to hear from you, buddy.
Yeah.
Come on, you got to preach this week.
Yeah.
How you feel about that?
Well, you know, it's a big deal for me.
Yeah.
I'm not an ordained pastor.
What? We let those on the platform?
Well, I slipped in. The door was open and I got in.
There you go.
But I'm an ordained chaplain.
Yes, you are.
Not the same thing, but it's a great honor for me to come and to do this, and especially on Biker Sunday.
Right.
It's
That's
a big
awesome.
deal.
That's awesome.
You know, I've been a member of this church 27 or 28 years.
Wow.
And for a big part of that, I kept a very low profile. I didn't even get baptized here in 2006, and that was under the Reverend Dr. Eddie Easton.
Hey.
And
our current district superintendent.
Oh, that's what they say.
Yes, that's what I hear.
Yeah, that's it. Then a few years ago, Phyllis came home. My wife Phyllis came home one day and said, "Hey, there's a couple people that are pursuing ordination as a chaplain, and there's a company that hires them part-time. You ought to do that. It'd be a good fit." I had been retired just a little bit.
Yep.
And you know, when you've been married for a while, if your spouse still likes you, and I think Phyllis still likes me.
I think so.
When nobody knows you as well as they do.
Right.
So when they come home and say, "Hey, you really ought to look into this," I said, "Oh, I will." And it's taken off from there.
Yeah.
Through the ordination process, and it was a somewhat lengthy ordination process, as it should be.
Yep.
Shepherd vouched for me and made that happen. I'm a little concerned about that because my good friend,
you slipped through, man.
My good friend Tim Swanson actually signed all the paperwork saying, yes, he's good to go. He's a great member. We love him. It wasn't long after that Tim had to announce his retirement. I hope those two things aren't connected.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
But I made it through the door.
Yeah, man.
And one of the things that struck me was through this ordination process, the parallels between the chaplaincy and the motorcycle ministry were pretty incredible and hard to ignore. The very first parallel was that the motorcycle ministry, as the chaplaincy, it happens outside the walls of the church.
Yes.
Now, fortunately, that means that chaplains don't have to bear the burden of the management of the church or the property or the people, any of those things.
Yep.
So in that respect, it's a lot easier job, but it happens outside the church. And we typically go places that an ordained pastor or a lot of members of the church wouldn't ordinarily go.
Right.
I said I work for a company that sends chaplains into the workforce, and it started off with 1 or 2 places. I go to 13 places.
Oh my gosh.
13 businesses of all types, and I encourage and try to lift up some of the folks that work there once they get to know me, and I lend myself to them as an ordained chaplain. We don't proselytize, but if the door opens about Jesus, we jump through that door with all the aggression that we can muster. The second parallel that was incredibly significant to me between the chaplaincy and the motorcycle ministry was the ministry of presence.
Yes.
And I'll speak to that several times. I did speak to that several times through the message.
Yeah.
The ministry of presence means showing up, really showing up, being there in the moment.
Yeah.
And then the ministry of listening.
Yes.
Now that sounds like, oh, well, how tough could that be? Let me tell you this, for bikers, it's really tough.
Yeah.
Because we want to tell you our story. Phyllis's mom, she's with the Lord now. She lived to 95, and she went to be with the Lord, one of the most godly women that I ever met in my life. We miss her horribly, but she told her kids, they all heard her say that every motorcyclist she ever met wanted to tell you about their crash. And that's the way we are. And if I had time, I'd tell you all about mine.
I was going to say, you have one of those stories.
That's the way we are.
Yeah,
we listen just long enough for you to come up for air so we can jump in and tell our story. Whether it's the great ride we took, whether it's the crash we had, it's just a biker thing. So the ministry of listening, you got to take a deep breath and listen.
Yeah.
Without thinking about what I'm going to say next. I want to listen, and that's the chaplaincy.
Yeah.
I want to listen to what you have to say, and I spend my day doing that, forcing myself to quit thinking about my story.
Yeah.
I want to hear your story, because if there's going to be an opportunity for the chaplain or the biker to speak about Jesus, if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss it. And of course, if you're not there, if you're not present, you're going to miss it.
Yep.
So the ministry of presence and the ministry of listening are both incredible pillars of the chaplaincy and of the motorcycle ministry.
Yeah, it's huge.
Now, I follow online these motorcycle ministry groups, and there's a bunch of them. I think on Biker Sunday in our sanctuary, I know that the priesthood was there.
Yep.
That is an international group. The CMA, Christian Motorcycle Association, was there. That is another internet. They're everywhere. Bikers for Christ.
Yep.
Our good friend Lee Wright came back, and he's with Bikers for Christ. And there's tons more. There's just tons more. So it's growing.
Yep.
And that's very encouraging, I think.
Yeah.
That more and more bikers are choosing that path. And these guys aren't, for lack of a better word, they're not sissies.
Right.
They're hardcore bikers.
Yep.
And they own real machines, and they travel. They put a lot of miles on.
Yeah.
But they've given their life to Christ, and they dedicate their riding time to the pursuit of their relationship with Christ and the relationship of others with Christ. So it's interesting. Full Armor was created in 2009, right here, Shep. Now, Full Armor is exclusive to Shepherd Church of the Nazarene. The five guys that created Full Armor, they made the decision that we are not going to join a national or an international organization.
Yeah.
We're just going to serve Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, and now, of course, into Johnstown.
Yeah.
And they made that decision. Now, the gentleman that formed it, the first one will be no surprise to people who've been around here for a while, like yourself. Sam Barber was a senior pastor. Sam is a motorcycle guy.
Yep.
He is an enthusiast. I lived across the street from Sam when he was the senior pastor, but I didn't know him other than seeing him at church, and we had never really gotten together, never even had a cup of coffee or anything until I got my first motorcycle. The night that I pulled my motorcycle into the garage, I hadn't lowered the garage door, and there was a knock on the front door. And I opened the front door, and it was Sam, and he said, "Let's see the bike."
Yeah.
And the neat thing about Sam is he's not just a Harley Davidson guy.
Yeah.
He likes motorcycles. My first bike I bought was a Suzuki. Now my wife, Phyllis, has been supporting Full Armor bikers since the very beginning.
Right.
She does a lot of media work for them and has really been a key supporter of Full Armor bikers. We were married almost 13 years ago. Right after we were married, I didn't even have a motorcycle. I had not sat on a motorcycle for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Like a lot of guys and gals, when we started having kids, the motorcycle went away.
Yep.
So for 25 years, I didn't even have the desire. She said to me one day, Phyllis says to me one day, periodically I go to Full Armor, and one of those guys will put me on the back of a bike and take me for a ride. I'm kind of wanting to do that again. I haven't been on a motorcycle in a long time. I'm going to reach out to one of those guys. And I said, "What?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Who?" And she said, "Tim Christian." Now, Tim was one of the early bikers here. He was one of the founders. Man. And I said, "If you're going to ride on the back of anybody's motorcycle, it's going to be my motorcycle.
It's got to be me."
And she said, "You don't have a motorcycle."
Right.
A week later, we had one. We stopped and bought we stopped at a big place that just sells used bikes, bought a used Suzuki small bagger. And in fact, I have a picture of her. They showed it during the message. I have a picture of her standing beside that motorcycle. We were in the parking lot of DeLand Church of the Nazarene. And we were leaving right then. We dropped her kids off there at her sister's house. We were leaving right then to go to Key West.
Oh, wow.
And her and I rode that little Suzuki with probably 100 pounds of luggage strapped on the back down to Key West.
Wow.
Spent the night and rode back the next day all the way back to her sister in DeLand. And that's a heck of a ride.
Yeah.
It's just inland from Orlando. So when we got into motorcycling, it kind of went crazy for us. So as I said, Sam Barber was a founder. Tim Christian was the first president. And Timmy was a president for, I think, 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
David Middendorf. Now, David wasn't known so well around here at that point. He came a lot better known right after that. But David was involved in the founding of it.
Cool.
Bob Stevenson, who's been the president of Full Armor since Timmy stepped down.
Wow.
Bill Bonham. We don't see much of Bill these days. I run into him once in a while, but Bill was one of the founders. And then Jim Fortes. And I haven't seen Jim since COVID. I think that for safety reasons, they hold up a little bit. And I don't know what their status is right now. But those 5 formed Full Armor, and they decided the Full Armor would be exclusive to Shepherd Church of the Nazarene.
That's cool.
Do you want me to keep going to the mission?
No, I want to cliffhanger it right there.
Okay.
Mainly because there's so much to unpack right here. With the rich history. So a couple questions I had, even going back to the very beginning of what you were saying is, how what you're doing with chaplaincy really translates over into biker ministry. And something you said, which if you're a pastor out there listening to this, and as a pastor sitting here, it is truly probably one of the most difficult ministries is the ministry of listening. The most difficult, but yet the most powerful. And how you'd shared, I wanted to just see if maybe be thinking about this while I'm talking, but if you can think of a story in particular from either the biker ministry or your chaplaincy stuff. So be thinking about this while I share is, for us pastors, our job is to talk. Our job is to communicate with people. And so when it comes time to sitting down and talking with somebody, it is a habit to just do all the speaking. And how many times, it was a moment in my life where I looked at the way that I pastor very similar to the way that I pray, and how often that I spend all my prayer time telling God everything I need. Hey man, will you answer this? Will you tell me this? Will you give me this? Okay, bye. And I never sat and took time to listen. And when I started finally pumping the brakes and be like, all right, Zack, if you want an answer, you got to spend time to listen for it. How much that changed my relationship with the Lord, and then translating into how it changed the way that I minister to people. Because 9 times out of 10, you don't have to say a word to somebody for them to understand that you trust them.
Trust is the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're right. You hit the nail right on the head. In the chaplaincy, I go into these businesses. I go to 5 different automotive shops, and these guys are working.
Right.
And I go and my conversation generally is, hey, how you doing today? And that's, I'm doing pretty good. And I wear a placard. This is Chaplain Larry Rinehart, so they know why I'm having conversation with them while they're working on a car. And I'll ask them how they're doing. How's the job going? How's everybody treating you? And their first thought is, I don't know this guy, and he's probably a snitch for the company.
Right.
So I'm just going to be friendly with him, and maybe he'll move on. It takes a while. I come back week after week smiling. How you doing? Good to see you, man. And what are you working on? And they'll tell me what they're working on. But it takes so long before somebody will say, hey, listen, I had a bad week this week. And I said, you did? Well, what happened? When I say that, I've got to be focused on the words coming out of their mouth, because there's an expectation, even if they're not churched, even if they're not into the Jesus thing. I gotta give them some suggestion at the end, some thought at the end. You can't do that if you're thinking, I can't wait till he quits talking because I'm going to tell him something that happened to me that's even worse.
Yep.
Because that's the way we communicate.
Right.
You tell your story, I tell mine, you tell yours, I tell mine.
You think your life was bad, you just wait.
Let me tell you what happened to me. So you're forced to, because finally somebody trusts you enough to tell you about this crisis that they have in their life. And if you weren't listening, and if you go into your story, they're thinking, well, gee, you're not going to help me. You're not going to give me any encouragement, or you're not going to give me any guidance. So I think, now I got to tell you one thing about the chaplaincy, and I know you're very familiar with this as a pastor. Every time I go into a business, I pray all the way there. Lord, give me the words.
Yep.
Give me the opportunity. Give me the words, Lord. Please prepare me, Father.
Yep.
And it takes time. And I think when the Lord thinks, okay, I've got you to the point that you're listening now, I'm going to give you an opportunity to help this person.
Yep.
And it's amazing to me, some of the weeks when I'm in a hurry and I think, I hope I'm only here 30 minutes. I'll be there 2 hours, because people will stop me and say, yeah, I've had a bad week, or I've had something going on I wanted to talk to you about. That's a milestone. And it's happened to me recently. It happened to me today. I was at 4 places today. And it's a great trust people put in you. They trust that you're sincere, and they've seen you enough that they feel like I can open up. Another example, on the other side of that coin, when I started writing, I got the bug really bad. Hadn't been on a bike in 25 years. I got the bug bad. You can tell by Miss Phyllis and I going down to Key West. That's a big deal. Yeah. And it's a big deal. She's quite much more the adventurer than people think that she is. To jump on the back of that little motorcycle. Right. And we're on a Florida Turnpike. But anyway.
That's wild.
So I come back from rides. I partnered up with a buddy of mine that I worked with before I retired, and we would use about half our vacation. We got a lot of vacation, and we would use about half our vacation each year to take 2 really long trips, 5, 6, sometimes 9-day trips. We were out to Arizona. We've been all over the West several times, and my buddy and I, we really saw some things. Problem is, when 2 guys are motorcycling, you see it at about 80 miles an hour and you point at it as you go by. It's not at all as good as when you're traveling with the family and you can go and see and do family stuff. But it was good. And we hope to do some more of that. I will come back and get in my small group, anxious to tell people, hey, I just got back a week ago. Let me tell you about this biker trip. And it's a motorcycle small group. Right. That's what that's part of Full Armor's supporting mission. It's a group, it's a small group. And you try to tell somebody, man, let me tell you guys about this. We took off, we leave the motel at 5:00 in the morning. It's still dark. Here's what we saw. Here's what we did. And then somebody would interrupt you and say, oh, yeah, I'm very familiar with that because my trip, I took my trip and we did this and we did that and it was great and it was wonderful. And you're thinking, well, I've known you for a few years. I didn't know you took it. I said, when did that happen? Oh, maybe 20 years ago. Oh, it's just the way we communicate. Right. We struggle. And I challenge bikers. I challenge bikers. When you leave this sanctuary, you go out and we go to get on our bikes, and somebody wants to tell you about their motorcycle or their trip or their ministry experience or where they've been and what they've done, force yourself to listen. And even if you think you've done something just a little more exciting, don't speak of it. If you could just muster the words and say, wow, man, that sounds great. Good for you. Very well done. And then shut up. If you can do that, you're on your way. But it's a learned skill. You're not born. You're not born with that.
No, it's not our natural human reaction. Our natural human reaction is we want the accolades. We want the look at what I did, tell me I did a good job thing. And that's just the human response. But that's, one of the many things that I look at is like when I say that, and I will say it till I'm blue in the face, like I am not on paper qualified to do what I can do. And in my own strength, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And then that is definitely one of those things that the Lord has had to help me grow is, Zach, sometimes it just takes shutting up and being there for somebody.
Oh, it's hard.
It's hard. It is.
We have this, and maybe it's the American culture. We have this battle of one-upsmanship. Bikers are the very worst. They're the very worst because every one of us thinks, my experience is the most unique, the most powerful of them all.
Right.
And when you get a group of bikers like we get on Biker Sunday, your experience is not the most exciting and dynamic of them all.
Right.
There's always some people who come that have done things that you just need to say, wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here today.
Yep.
And let it go.
Yep.
Let it go. It's a big challenge.
Yeah. And it makes them feel cared for.
Yes.
You know, like you were going back to, like, just being present with people. You know, you might have heard, you know, one of my favorite things when I was starting out in ministry, and honestly, one of the moments that what I call my sanctification moment. You know, I used to travel with a band, and to a lot of people, like, that's a cool story. You know, people want to hear, like, oh, tell me, like, where have you been? What's the biggest show you ever played? And I remember the time where, you know, when I would share my testimony, because we wrote a song about it, and every night we would share the gospel, and I would share my testimony and play this song. And so you'd have a lot of younger kids come up and want to share their hard experiences, which in comparison, you know, which is a terrible thing to do, but in comparison, I'm like, I was a drug addict that overdosed and almost died. And I have a 13-year-old coming up like, I looked at a cigarette one time and I feel like I'm a bad person. I'm like, you're fine, kid.
Yeah.
And
Just don't look again.
Exactly. But it was in that moment, I'll never forget it, where it was a young gal, and it was in the middle of summer. We were playing at a camp. It was the middle of summer. It's 100 degrees, and this girl comes up wearing a sweatshirt, and she goes, "Hey, I need to talk to you about, you know, some things I'm struggling with." And I was like, "Oh, here we go. You know, here we go, Zach." And I was preparing myself to hit the interrupt button and be like, "You're going to be all right. Move on." Until she lifted her sleeve up and showed me all these fresh cut marks. I mean, like, still bleeding on her arm.
Yeah.
And it was in that moment, I'll never forget, the Lord said, "One, Zach, this is what I want you to do with your life. Like, this whole traveling thing, like, I want you to get into the lives of people. Like, the local church is your ministry. Do life with people." And had I not taken the time to shut up and listen to what this young lady had to say, her life could have looked drastically different.
Yeah.
But it was that split second of, okay, just hear her out.
Yes.
You know, the power in that, and what the Lord and the Spirit was able to do through that 0.2 seconds of shutting up and listening.
Yeah. You know, I was today, a guy who I've talked to for weeks and weeks and weeks. He had a pretty traumatic thing happen on the job.
Yeah.
And I tracked him down because I knew where he was at now. And I talked to him a little bit, and he said, "Hey, can I talk to you outside?" And we went outside and talked. And he's telling me his story, how he feels through the whole experience. And he's very specific, and I'm just listening, and I'm nodding, and I'm listening. And when he was done, oftentimes the only thing I have is the biggest gun that we have, and that is prayer.
Yeah.
And I told him that, and he said, "You know, I will pray conversationally with the Lord on the way home." This guy was a believer, and I will pray on the way home. He said, "But I got to tell you something. Just being able to tell you the whole story and how I feel really helps me, because I keep going home telling it to my wife, and I'm wearing her out.
Right.
There's really nobody on the job I can tell it to. But thank you just for listening." And I'm thinking, thank you, Lord, for giving me the discipline, because that's never been my superpower, giving me the self-discipline to listen and to not jump in with some story of mine that would not help him a bit. Just listening. And that is the ministry of presence and the ministry of listening.
Yeah.
Just having the discipline to do that.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things I did, if I can continue on.
Yeah, if you're ready, buddy, let's do it.
The 3-minute testimony. Now, in the chaplaincy, I was going through that ordination process, and they talked about the 3-minute testimony. They said, you really need to develop a 3-minute testimony, because you may get 3 minutes with somebody, and that may be all you get. You're not going to get 15 or 20 minutes,
right?
Because we're out in the field, and that's the chaplaincy. What's a motorcycle ministry? And I thought, where did I hear that before? I heard it years ago when David Middendorf was the chaplain for Full Armor Bikers, and David Middendorf mentioned that, a 3-minute testimony. Well, I don't know if anybody in the group did it. I didn't take it seriously, but he said, you may get 3 minutes, and if you do, that's probably all you're going to get. The 3-minute testimony. So I knew I was going to speak about that when I spoke Sunday. I knew I was going to mention that, because it's a very valuable tool. So thinking about it, I thought, I better dust mine off, because your 3-minute testimony, it needs to be impactful.
Yes.
It needs to be powerful. It needs to be yours from your heart, not AI, not something that you saw on the internet or you heard someone else. It's got to be yours. And it's got to include three things in whatever order it works for you, where I was in my life, what the Lord did for me, and where I'm at. However you shake that out, and you need to continue to work on it.
Yep.
David and the ordination process said, stand in front of a mirror, private, by yourself, shut the door, stand in front of a mirror and practice that. Because when you get a chance to give it, you got to be on your money. You can't dilly and dally and stammer and stutter and say, wait a minute, let me pull this written testament out of my pocket and I'll read it to you verbatim.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, I need to do better with mine. And I thought I needed to do better. And I worked on it and I worked on it. I'm telling you, this is the Lord telling me I was on the right path. Last week, twice in one giant mechanic shop at one end, a guy said, hey, a shop I'm usually only in 20 minutes. And I'm walking around, there's a shop foreman out there and he knows me and he supports the chaplaincy and he knows the owner of the company supports the chaplaincy being there.
Nice.
So I'm walking around and I go back and I say, hey, how you doing, man? My opening line, how you doing? Any way I can pray for you? And the guy said, I had a rough week. I've really had a rough week. And I said, what went wrong? And he told me, and it was a rough week. And there is I had no magic bullet. There's nothing I could say that would fix it all. All I could do was talk about prayer. And the guy said, well, I appreciate that, but I've never really been into the whole religion thing. In fact, I believe there may be one supreme power, but haven't been into the Jesus thing. And I don't know how you're so certain of that because I'm not.
Right.
And to me, that was him saying, share your 3-minute testimony with me.
Convince me.
When you say, I don't know how you're so certain, let me tell you how I'm so certain.
Yeah.
And I knew then in my brain, this is from the Lord. He's saying you're on the right track. And I gave it to him. I hit him with it hard. And I said, man, let me tell you where I came from. And let me tell you what happened to me. And let me tell you where I'm at now. And that's the Lord. And he'll put it on your heart and you'll know it's him. And then he's listening to me. Yeah. We're making eye contact. He's listening to me and I'm trying to plant the seed because you know what we do. We plant the seed and leave it to the Lord.
Yep.
He'll water it or he won't. It's, whatever his plan is.
Yep.
And I talked to that guy under the hood of a car for over an hour. I was exhausted, but I gave him, and we talked and we went back and forth. And I said, I'm telling you, you've got nothing to lose. On your way home, cry out passionately to Jesus.
Yep.
And say, hey, Lord, I don't want to be a poser. I'm not feeling it in my heart. Please, if you're real, if this is real, please let me know, put it upon my heart, Lord, and help me come up with some solutions for this situation I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
I told him you had nothing to lose. I saw him again today. And I asked him if he had done it. I said, we kind of have a verbal contract that you'd give that a shot.
Right.
So anyway, a week ago, I'm done with him. I'm beat. I want to get in my car, stop and get a coffee and go home and take a nap. And I'm walking out clear at the other end, a guy that there's no way he could have heard or seen any of this. This guy, and I've talked to this guy several times. And I said, how you doing today, man? He said, I'm great. I said, how's things at home? Great. Things are going great. And I said, how's the job going? It's great. And I said, now, let me tell you this, now's the time you need to pray. When it's going great, give thanks to God that it's going great and ask him that it continue. I said, don't ever give. He said, I wanted to tell you this. He said, I know you were probably raised in the church and you've probably been going to church your whole life. And this is a real easy thing for you. He said, I wasn't.
Right.
And he said, this whole God thing, he said, religion, he said, I'm really not into that. And again, he said, I know you're certain. I don't know how you're certain, but I'm not. And I thought, Lord, you are really testing me today.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let me tell you how I'm certain. And I went into, and I was only with that guy about a half an hour, but I said, man, Lord. But I walked out of there knowing that I am on the right track with that and with talking to people about that because it's a phenomenal tool.
Yeah.
The 3-minute message.
100%. I love it, brother. Well, hey, let's wrap up today's conversation because we kind of left it on a cliffhanger, and I'm excited to get back to hearing about Full Armor's mission and how that associates with the church. But man, what an amazing start to this conversation and hearing, in real time, the way that God is using these opportunities and the way that he is literally opening doors. I always say, be careful what you ask God for because he'll give it to you. You want an opportunity to witness? You asked for it, he'll open that door. And so we hope that you have enjoyed this conversation. We hope that you're getting a lot out of it. I know I am. And we hope that you join us again tomorrow for the rest of this conversation, because we're not done yet. We're just getting started, and I can't wait to continue it. But we hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a good one.
This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.